About. Before your mind even forms a single thought, your field has already spoken. Before your mouth shapes a word, your energy has already sent its message. You walk into a room, and the air knows how you feel, not because of what you say, but because of what you carry, and what you carry quietly is everything. Your breath is not just oxygen, it is signal. Each inhale tells the quantum field what you're trying to hold in. Each exhale whispers what you're finally willing to release. Your body is speaking, always. And the universe, that soft, unseen mirror around you, is always listening. The language of the quantum field is not words or logic. It is frequency, emotion, vibration. And no matter what mask your thoughts wear, your nervous system tells the truth. Your body holds stories. Your mind has tried to forget. The trembling in your chest, the tightness in your jaw, the shallow breath you didn't notice until just now. These are not accidents. They are transmission. You may say you're ready for change. You may declare your desire for peace, for love, for abundance. But if your body flinches when it gets close, if your energy braces when good things arrive, the field listens to that. It doesn't reflect what you hope for. It reflects what your system believes is safe to receive. This is the quiet honesty of the universe. It does not judge. It does not punish. It simply mirrors the coherence or incoherence between your inner truth and your outward signal, between what you say and what your nervous system still carries beneath the surface. And so you begin here, not by pushing harder, not by perfecting your affirmations, but by softening into sensation. What is your breath doing right now? Does it trust this moment enough to go deep, or is it hovering just beneath your throat, waiting, guarding, protecting? This is where you begin to shift, not through force, not through logic, but through presence. Feel the weight of your body. The ground beneath you is not asking you to prove anything. It's only asking you to arrive, to let yourself be held. Because in this stillness, your field recalibrates. Your frequency begins to organize itself around honesty. And honesty is where coherence begins. Coherence is not perfection. It's not confidence. It's congruence. It's when your inside matches your outside. When your breath, your posture, your emotions and your thoughts are all singing the same quiet song. When there's no longer a split between what you feel and what you perform. And the quantum field, it responds to that, not to control, not to clever words, but to the unshakable signal of someone who's no longer performing safety, but actually feels safe in their own skin. This is quantum coherence, and it doesn't start with manifestation rituals or mental tricks. It starts with a long, slow exhale, the kind that tells your body, you don't have to run tonight. You don't have to fight. You can be here now. You are already enough, already known, already seen. Even in silence, the space around you begins to shift. When you stop trying to explain yourself to it, when you stop chasing and start allowing, because the quantum field isn't a judge, it's a mirror. It's not deciding what you deserve, it's reflecting what you're being. And so, if you want something different, you don't have to push harder. You simply need to become someone new, not from your thoughts, but from your signal, from your cells, from your breath. The transformation begins in stillness, not effort. And every time you soften, your field reorganizes itself around that softness. The observer effect doesn't just apply to what you watch outside of you. It also shifts what's happening within you. The moment you witness yourself with compassion, the wave collapses differently. Possibility becomes form, but only if the frequency is aligned with truth. So now, rest. Let your mind drift. Let your body lead. You are already shifting, not because you're trying, but because you're feeling. Not because you're planning, but because you're arriving. And in this arrival, the quantum field leans closer, listening to the version of you that doesn't need to say anything to be real. Because you don't have to speak in order to be heard. You don't have to explain in order to be felt. The universe has always been listening, and tonight, finally, it hears you. What is your body whispering to the universe, even when your mouth says nothing at all? Sometimes, you reach, and it doesn't reach back. You try, and it resists. You visualize, and nothing moves. In those moments, your mind may whisper, "You're doing it wrong. You're not enough. You're blocked." But the truth is softer, quieter, kinder. Misalignment is not punishment. It's not failure. It's not rejection from the universe. It is feedback. And your body, your nervous system is the one delivering the message. There is no judgment in resistance, only intelligence, only pacing, only the echo of your deeper truth. Asking, is this what I'm ready to hold? Sometimes, when your desires don't land, it's not because they're unreachable, but because they're misseed with what your nervous system believes is safe. You think you want it. You speak as though you're ready. But beneath your words, something clenches. Something waits. Your body, that wise and ancient compass, remembers things your mind has long buried. It doesn't move based on logic or strategy. It moves according to sensation, to safety, to stored experience. And when it hesitates, it's not sabotaging you. It's shielding you, because the field doesn't just respond to your intention. It responds to your signal, and when that signal is chaotic, wanting but resisting, reaching but guarding, visualizing but bracing, the wave becomes unstable. The pattern doesn't land. This is the science of interference. When waves meet in harmony, they amplify. When they clash, they cancel. Your desires are waves. Your fear is a wave too. And when both are sent into the field listens to the strongest frequency. So what are you truly broadcasting? This is not something to fear, it's something to feel. Misalignment is simply your system, letting you know there's something that still needs holding, still needs healing, still needs safety. Not more effort, not more force. Just presence, just trust. Even your resistance is sacred. It is not the enemy of your growth. It is the messenger of your boundaries. It is the gatekeeper of your nervous system asking softly, "Please don't rush me." And so instead of pushing through resistance, you lean in, you listen, you breathe, you ask, what part of me is afraid right now? What version of me still thinks they're not safe to receive this? What memory, what feeling, what fear still lives in my breath? Then you pause. You let the answers come without judgment. You let the tension speak, because when something doesn't arrive, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're calibrating. It means your field is realigning itself around a new signal. It means you're learning to speak a language that the universe actually understands. Coherence. Coherence doesn't come from force. It comes from congruence, from the alignment between your desire and your readiness, between your hope and your somatic truth. So tonight, what if you stopped blaming the delay? What if you stopped resenting the stillness? What if you trusted that the gap is not punishment, but preparation? Your nervous system is not slow. It is precise. It is poetic. It is building a foundation that can actually hold what you've been asking for. The waves you send out are not ignored. They are shaping themselves around you, around your pacing, your softness, your truth. There is no rush, because the field does not respond to urgency. It responds to harmony, and sometimes harmony takes time. Let your resistance be a guidepost. Let your hesitation be sacred. Let every delay become an invitation to breathe deeper, to listen closer, to feel more fully. Misalignment isn't the universe saying no. It's the universe asking, are you ready for this to stay? Or are you still afraid it will leave the moment you receive it? And when you're willing to feel the answer, everything begins to shift. So tonight, lay down your urgency. Let the waves resettle. Let the interference clear. Your only task is to soften the signal, because the moment your breath says yes, the field will follow. What is your resistance really trying to protect you from? And what happens when you finally listen? There is a difference between wanting something and being ready to receive it. You can speak the affirmation, you can picture the outcome, you can even feel the hunger in your chest as you visualize the life you desire. But if the roots of your desire are tangled in fear, the signal gets distorted and the field doesn't respond to your vision, it responds to your vibration. You cannot manifest safety while your nervous system is still preparing for war. You cannot attract love while your body is bracing for abandonment. You cannot step into abundance when your breath still carries the tremble of scarcity. The observer effect is not activated by words alone. It's not your conscious thoughts that collapse the wave. It's the state of being you unconsciously live in, breathe in, and vibrate from. Your thoughts may say, "I am ready," but your body whispers otherwise. Your mind might speak of peace, while your shoulders remain tight, your jaw clenched, your belly drawn in to protect. The field listens not to what you perform, but to what you embody, and fear is loud, even when unspoken. Fear at its core is not the enemy. It is a messenger. It asks, what are you still trying to control? What pain haven't you fully exhaled? Fear distorts the signal because it tries to survive what hasn't happened yet. It creates urgency where there should be ease. It contracts the field, and in that contraction, possibility struggles to land. Desperation has a frequency. So does defense. So does hypervigilance. And the quantum field is listening. It reflects you not just in your dreams, but in your defenses. Not just in what you hope for, but in what you brace against. Sometimes what you're calling a block is just your nervous system trying to keep you alive using an outdated blueprint. It learned once that attention only came through overgiving, that love was unsafe, that visibility led to shame, that joy was fleeting and followed by loss. And so even as you speak of what you desire, another part of you prepares for what you fear. That split creates distortion, and distortion creates delay. This is why no amount of positive thinking will override what your body still sees as a threat. Your subconscious doesn't speak English, it speaks sensation. It doesn't obey affirmation, it obeys emotion until you make the inner world feel safe. The outer world will reflect the lack of safety you unknowingly radiate, but you are not broken. This is not sabotage, this is wisdom misdirected. It is self-protection that hasn't yet learned you are no longer in the fire. You are not in the same place. You are not the same version of you. You no longer need to manifest from fear because you are safe to soften now. So tonight, instead of trying to force alignment, rest. Instead of declaring what you want with clenched fists, open your palms. Let the defenses fall slowly like petals shedding in the dark. Let your breath become less of a shield and more of a song. The universe cannot receive a signal that is scrambled by self-defense, but it can receive softness, stillness, trust. The shift begins not when you speak a new desire, but when you stop protecting against an old wound. This is when coherence returns. This is when your field relaxes enough to receive, when the observer no longer sees tension, but trust. You do not need to perform worthiness. You do not need to fight to be seen. You only need to feel your way into safety. Because when your body believes it is safe, the universe believes it too, and everything begins to move. So ask yourself, softly, without judgment, what part of me is still afraid to receive what I say I want? What survival pattern am I still mistaking for truth? What does my nervous system believe it must still defend? Let those questions rock you to sleep, not as a puzzle to fix, but as a whisper to feel. Let your fear speak, and then let it rest, because manifestation isn't born from force, it's born from coherence. And coherence only arrives when fear is no longer leading the way. What would shift if you stopped trying to prove you're ready, and simply let yourself feel safe enough to begin? There is a moment when trying becomes tension, when reaching becomes resisting, when your efforts, sincere, noble, determined, begin to signal the very thing you fear, that what you want is not yet here and may never be. Your energy is not hidden behind your actions. It is your action. It is what the field responds to, not your checklist of rituals, not the volume of your affirmations, but the tone underneath, the frequency between the lines, and sometimes that frequency whispers one thing over and over again. I don't believe it's safe to stop trying, but what if it is? What if the signal you send, the real one, the one beneath your voice, has always been shaped, not by desire but by distrust, not by love, but by lack, not by alignment, but by urgency. You can manifest nothing in the clenched fist, because the clenched fist cannot hold. It grasps. It grasps because it does not yet trust, and the field does not open for desperation. It opens for coherence. It responds not to noise, but to surrender. Wave collapse in quantum physics is not forced. It happens when observation becomes still, when possibility meets presence and form is born. Not from pressure, but from permission. You cannot push the wave into shape. You must let it fall. Letting go is not failure. It is frequency. The more you try, the more your trying becomes a signal of separation. A quiet admission. I am not there yet. I am not enough yet. I do not trust this moment to hold me. And so you push, you tighten, you reach forward with the very energy that keeps your vision just one layer out of reach. But something changes when you stop. Not when you give up, but when you give in. When your shoulders fall and your breath begins to flow again. When the fear of not enough dissolves into maybe this is already enough. When your body softens, your field does too. This is not about doing less. It is about being more honest, more still, more receptive. Because the version of you who no longer has to prove, no longer has to fight, no longer has to earn or perform, is the version who receives. You do not attract from willpower, you attract from state, and surrender is not the state of quitting, it is the state of aligning, of no longer trying to outthink the flow, of no longer needing to control the how. It is the state that says, I trust myself to hold what's coming. What if your trying has only kept you in delay? What if the dream has been circling you for years, waiting for your energy to stop resisting it with effort? What if your grip is what turned the flow into friction? The softest state is the most powerful, because the field listens for coherence, not intensity. It listens for the relaxed nervous system, the steady heart, the unclenched breath. These are not signs of inaction. These are signs of embodiment. When you stop trying to become, you begin to be. And in that being, something opens. Possibility stops circling. It lands, not as reward, but as reflection. Because now you match what you were once chasing. Surrender doesn't collapse your chances. It collapses the wave. And in that collapse, reality is born. Not the one your mind rehearsed, but the one your frequency is finally safe enough to meet. You don't have to chase what's already moving toward you. So tonight, rest. Not as an escape, but as an arrival. Let this be the place you stop reaching and start allowing. Let this be the moment you let your shoulders forget the shape of effort. Let this be the breath that no longer hides fear beneath its rhythm. Let the stillness say what words never could. I am ready, not because I've tried hard enough, but because I've softened enough to receive. What part of you is still gripping the future instead of letting it unfold? And can you, just for now, be the version of you who no longer needs to try? You are not who you think you are. You are who your body has learned to be. The stories you carry didn't begin as truth. They began as protection, and over time, the nervous system in its fierce devotion to survival turned those protections into personality, not because they were who you are, but because they kept you safe. You learned to brace before disappointment, to shrink before judgment, to smile when hurting, to disappear when it felt dangerous to take up space. These weren't conscious choices. They were frequencies, slowly imprinted, rehearsed, recycled, reinforced, until they felt like you. But repetition is not identity. It's just a loop. and loops can be interrupted. Somewhere inside you, a pattern begins to loosen. A pause grows between reaction and response. A new signal tries to rise, faint but true. Not the voice of your coping mechanisms, but the voice beneath them. The one who remembers who you were before you had to perform being okay. Your identity is not fixed. It is fluid. And like a river, it follows the grooves it's carved 1,000 times. The grooves of your nervous system, the grooves of your emotional memory, the grooves of what felt familiar, even when it hurt. But neuroplasticity is always listening. It is the quiet gift of your brain's becoming. The evidence that you are never truly stuck, only repeated. And repetition, unlike reality, can be rewritten. The patterns you repeat shape the version of you. The field reflects, because your field doesn't respond to the story you want to tell. It responds to the frequency your body still rehearses, the one wrapped around your breath, the one tucked beneath your muscle tension, the one that whispers, even in silence, "This is who I need to be to survive." But what if you don't need to survive anymore? What if this moment is safe enough to feel? And when safety returns, something else returns too. Choice. Not the mental kind, but the embodied kind. The kind where you become the one who no longer reacts from fear, but from presence. The kind of choice that happens in your breath before it happens in your thoughts. Can you feel it? The space between the old impulse and the new possibility. That space is where identity begins to shift. Not through effort, not through control, but through awareness, through compassion, through regulation. Your nervous system doesn't need more commands. It needs more coherence, more truth, more room to feel without shutting down, to respond without disappearing, to express without self-abandonment. And as you soften, the loop loosens. The story becomes less sticky. The emotional charge begins to fade. You start hearing yourself without the echo of past versions interpreting every moment as threat. This is healing, not as a fix, but as a frequency. When you stop repeating the old signal, the field listens differently. What once mirrored your survival mechanisms now begins to reflect your safety, your stillness, your softness, yourself. And this is where you realize identity is not who you are. It is who you've practiced being. Every moment you breathe without bracing, you interrupt the loop. Every time you rest without guilt, you rewrite the story. Every time you choose presence over pattern, you signal the field with a new you. So let yourself fall into that signal now. Let your breath be a bridge back to the version of you that doesn't need to pretend. Let your body exhale the role it no longer wants to play. Let your heart feel what it was never given space to feel. You are not the defense you became. You are not the fear you rehearsed. You are not the role you survived in. You are what remains. When the loop dissolves, when the pattern forgets itself, when your nervous system remembers that safety is not a threat. And maybe that's all identity ever was, a frequency shaped by what your body believed was possible. You've spent so long trying to be understood that you forgot what it feels like to simply be, to exist without explaining, to breathe without proving, to rest without performing a self you don't even recognize anymore. But coherence, true coherence, doesn't require you to be understood. It only asks that you be honest. There is a quiet rhythm beneath all your effort, a pulse that's never asked you to be anything but real. It doesn't care how eloquently you speak. It listens to how you feel, not how you present yourself to the world, but how your nervous system responds when no one is watching. That's the part the universe listens to, the part the field mirrors. When you stop performing, you come home, not to perfection, but to congruence, to the place inside you where thought, breath, and truth begin to align. This is not about saying the right thing. It's about not betraying what you already know. The moment you stop reaching outward for approval, your energy settles. your system finds its rhythm again. Your shoulders soften, your jaw unlocks, your breath deepens. This is coherence, not a state you create, a state you return to. And it only begins when you stop apologizing for being exactly where you are. Because for so long you've been trying to earn safety through performance, smiling when you wanted to cry, shrinking when you needed to speak, holding your breath so others could feel more comfortable around your silence. But this chapter of your life asks something different. It asks for congruence. It asks for truth. It asks for a kind of inner honesty that no one can see, but everyone can feel. You don't have to shout to be clear. You don't have to prove to be powerful. You don't have to explain to be valid. You only need to let your breath match your body match your truth, and your truth match your presence. That's coherence. Not a perfect frequency, a consistent one. A signal that doesn't contradict itself. That doesn't say I'm fine when you're breaking. That doesn't reach out when it really wants to retreat inward. That doesn't say yes when the body is screaming no. Your nervous system knows the difference, and so does the field. Because energy, unlike words, cannot lie. The quantum field isn't responding to your performance. It's responding to your presence. It's reading your coherence. Every moment you're honest with yourself, your frequency becomes more aligned, and every moment you betray your own knowing, even gently, even with good intentions, the signal gets fuzzy. You don't need to be healed to be congruent. You only need to be honest about where you are, because even sadness, when expressed truthfully, holds coherence. Even fear, when acknowledged, can become sacred. There's nothing wrong with being in process. What fragments you is the pressure to pretend you're not. And maybe this is where your new life begins, not with a breakthrough, but with a breath you don't manipulate, a breath you don't perform, a breath you allow fully, softly, silent, because the moment your breath is honest, your signal is honest, and the moment your signal is honest, the field listens. You don't need to force it, you don't need to fix it, you only need to feel it. That's the coherence the universe understands, the congruence of someone who is no longer negotiating with their truth, someone who isn't packaging their emotions in pretty phrases, someone who just is, unfiltered, untamed, unapologetically aligned. So tonight, let yourself arrive fully in your breath. Let your inhale be slow enough to feel real. Let your exhale be full enough to feel safe. Let your body release the roles it's still holding on to, the ones you outgrew a long time ago. You are not here to entertain. You are not here to convince. You are not here to perform. You are here to resonate. You are not chasing anything. Not really. Not the love. Not the purpose. Not the moment. What you are chasing is a version of you who no longer chases. A version that breathes without needing to prove. A self who already holds what you once believed was out there. You think you're seeking, but you are signaling. You are not a beggar to the field. You are the field folding into form, one feeling at a time. The truth is, nothing is on its way, because nothing was ever far. It was always inside you, locked not in time, but in tone. Your frequency is the map. Your emotional body is the compass. Your nervous system is the gatekeeper. And the future you long for, it is not hiding, it is humming inside the parts of you that stopped performing and started listening. You are not calling something in. You are calling yourself forward. You are not waiting for a moment. You are becoming the moment. The universe doesn't respond to effort. It responds to essence, not to words, but to the quiet coherence of being. When you stop chasing timelines and start embodying your tone, the field listens, because this is not about summoning. It's about softening, not commanding reality, but collapsing resistance. You see, every time you whisper, "I want it," your field replies, "Do you feel safe enough to hold it?" And if your body says, "No, not yet," the wave doesn't collapse, not as punishment, but as wisdom. Because the quantum flow does not follow urgency. It follows resonance. It doesn't mirror your will. It mirrors your wholeness. You keep waiting for proof that it's coming. But what if it's already here, waiting for you to arrive? Not the version of you that's desperate, not the one still bracing, still apologizing, still shrinking, but the one who exhales without hesitation, the one who no longer flinches when life says yes, the one who doesn't just visualize safety, but embodies it. That version of you, the one you've been trying to meet, isn't on the other side of manifestation. It is the manifestation. You are not a signal sent into the void. You are the center of a ripple, and the field is responding to your breath, to your openness, to your decision to no longer delay who you came here to be. So breathe a little slower now, not to force alignment, but to remember it. Breathe like the version of you who doesn't rush, who doesn't perform, who doesn't audition for realities they were born to live. And ask yourself gently what part of you still believes it needs to chase what's already encoded within. There's no need to reach anymore, only to reside. There's nothing to summon, only something to surrender into. The you who has arrived is not louder, they're quieter. They move with less tension and more truth. They do not shout to be seen. They signal through stillness, and when that signal stabilizes, not through discipline, but through safety, everything starts to organize around it. This is vibrational self-communication. This is how the quantum field responds. Not to force, not to fear, but to the frequency of a body that no longer seeks refuge outside of itself. So let this be the night you stop rehearsing a version of you the world might accept, and start embodying the one that already belongs. Let this be the chapter where you realize you are not sending a message into space. You are the message, you are the permission, you are the portal, and maybe, just maybe, the event you've been waiting for was never something that needed to happen. It was someone that needed to awaken. So what if that someone is you?